Gemini brain. Gemini, 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 Gemini brain.
I think we got something.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Potential spoilers for Fourth Wing and Iron Flame ahead. If you have not read the books or do not wish for your experience to be tainted with my thoughtful opinions, then get out of here. Scram. Come back later.
Oh, I am in a chokehold. I just finished reading Iron and Flame. It's in the Empyrean series. So the first one is Fourth Wing. If you don't know what I'm talking about, perhaps move on. I don't know. I don't think this will be fun if you're not also invested in the book, but maybe it would be. I don't want to tell you what to do with your life. So I recorded a human design sort of breakdown of the characters in Fourth Wing. Is the second book in the series, and I just finished it, and I have a lot of questions, and I have some more thoughts on the character development that we've seen from the first to the second book. So if you're interested in talking about Iron Flame or Fourth Wing, or sort of seeing the characters through the perspective of human design and like a little eensy beensy teensy, that's like my teeth, a little eensy teensy beensy bit of astrology, which is I am not fluent in. Stick around, bitch. So these books, I tell you, I have not been so excited and so like I don't reread things. It's just not something that I personally do. Immediately after finishing the first book, I reread it. I was in TikTok, like in all the theories, listening to other people around the world. It's giving me the same sort of feeling and excitement like that I felt with Harry Potter. And I was soups into Harry Potter. I didn't even reread those though. And it was like I went to the midnight premieres. I, talked about it. My mom and I read them together, which was really cute. I had a friend in high school and we would go to the book premiere and the movie premiere. And that was really fun. It's fun to be part of this wave. It's fun to be part of something that's we're all watching and reading at the same time. We don't get that as much as we used to when TGIF was on and everyone was watching the same shows on Friday night, and you could talk about them together on Monday, or like Friends premiered every week or whatever it was. Like the culture now is that we all have these curated feeds and we might not even be seeing the same thing. And so yes, there have been other things like this, like Game of Thrones. If you were keeping up with it, it was released episodically. So it forced people to be on the same pacing, which is so fun because then you get to talk about it. It's like deliciously painful to have to wait for the next one to come out, too. So, anyway, the next book isn't going to come out for another year, which is torturous. But this book series has reminded me how much I love fantasy. And which is a funny thing that I forgot. But anyway, if you haven't read it and you don't know what I'm talking about, I suggest you do. If you wanted to wait until the third book was a little closer to being released, because the pain of having to wait, especially now that we're used to getting things so immediately, perhaps do that. It's also going to be a show. They've already optioned it for a show. So please get on the bandwagon. There's room for you here. And it's really, really fun, or I'm having a great time. So I'm also like waking up in the middle of the night and thinking about it. And so the book is basically, it's a war college, and there's one of 4 places where you can go. There's the Dragon Riders Quadrant, which is like the most deadly. They're just like killing people off left and right, which is a little questionable, but we start to learn more about like why they might be doing that, or just getting the characters more perspective in the second book. And then there's infantry, which is basically like if you don't pick anything else, you end up in infantry, which is like on the front lines. Then there's the scribes, so they're the ones like reading and writing and taking notes and in charge of like inseminating and putting in all the information, the missives, like keeping track of things. And they're meant to be as sort of like not obtuse, but like unopinionated as possible, and to keep it like the actual news. And then there is the healers quadrant, and they're basically like the nurses and doctors. So This book, what I love about it is so fun. I think I know some people have mentioned that they don't like this, but there's like a lot of colorful language, modern language, and like they use swear words, which I think is fun and it makes it easy to read and it makes them easy to relate to. Anyway, if you're in the writer's quadrant, you have to like go through these deadly gauntlets or whatever. And if you make it through those in your first year and you don't die, which a lot of them do, you end up getting the opportunity to go like have a dragon choose you. And I kind of like the dragons are a whole fucking thing in this book too. It's so fun. Anyway, she's excited. I have like more questions than answers at the end of the second book. So I can't wait for the third one to come out. So the main protagonist, Violet Sorengale, is, I would say, she's pretty spicy. She's born, we find out in the first book, she's born in July. So she's either a Cancer or she's a Leo. She's giving Leo, honestly. She's got like one of the special things about her. She's got this hair that's like very unique to her, where it's dark on the top and then it fades to silver. And this seems to be like a very important character trait. Nobody else has hair like this. She also has, I suspect, the author has condition where her joints and stuff are like loose and weak or like pop out a lot of the times. I think it's called like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS. So I guess it's a syndrome. And the main character has this as well. So she's like, her mother is the general head of the fucking all the things. Her father is dead and he was a scribe. And her older brother and sister were both like legendary dragon riders. At the end of the first book, we thought her brother was dead for 6 years. At the end of the first book, we find out he is not dead. He is alive and he is leading the revolution because the main army college is lying to everybody about the big bad and saying that it's these griffins, but it's not fucking griffins. It's these like mythical creatures that they've basically scrubbed out of the records. The scribes have been complacent in scrubbing this information from the records. Violet has like the mind of a scribe. They really talk about this a lot throughout the books, and then it's emphasized at the end of the second book that one of her dragons, she ends up bonding two dragons because she's so special. Also giving Leo, honestly, like center of the show. She's also not very emotional. So I'm going to say that she's a non-emotional, or she's like really shut down her emotions and isn't used to processing them or doesn't think that they're useful, because the scribe's quadrant, which is like how she was sort of like fostered and trained her entire life until 6 months before her 18th birthday, when her mom was like, actually, never mind, you're going to be a dragon rider now, and threw her into that. They really value like no emotion, be objective, like don't no laugh, cry, whatever. Like she has a really good friend in the scribe's quadrant, and she goes to talk to her all the time, and she mentions like, oh, if we get caught like smiling or hugging, we're gonna get in trouble. So this to me is either like a dampened emotional center, like she's got it defined and she just isn't allowing herself to feel those things, which she starts opening up more at the end of the second book. But or she just has an undefined emotional center and is really like got the slams the shields down and doesn't let anybody else's emotions affect her. There is a character who comes in the second book. Her name's Catriona, our cat, and she is Xaden, the hot, and I wouldn't even say love interest, but like basically like bonded fate, Romeo, Juliet, blah, blah, blah kind of a thing. And I don't say that lightly because I think they're both going to have to die, which is like so upset. Anyway, Catriona has her power, and everyone gets like a secret power. Her power is being able to amplify emotion. So it's emotions that are already there. And this is so interesting. I wonder, in a human design perspective, if Catriona's ability to amplify emotions is really just like turning up the volume on your undefined centers, and it feels out of control because she's got the fucking dial and she can like yank it up. So when they first meet, Violet does not really know about her in so much as like she knows that Xaden has an ex and this is his ex, but Catriona like says some crazy shit to start ramping up the emotions in Violet, and then grabs a hold of that dial and yanks it up. And so then Violet is feeling like out of control, can't can't, basically she like can't control her emotions. She's like getting super pissed. Her power is like lightning, but then we find out in this book that it's maybe more of just being able to channel power from the sky, and it comes out as lightning. So anyway, this is why I think she has an undefined emotional center. And here I will share my cutie little screen here. So the emotional center is this one, and I'm just using Genetic Matrix. This is a software where you can like build a chart, which I think is kind of fun, but it's nobody's actual chart. And because like she doesn't have a birth year, and the years don't work in the same way as they do in our world, although they do seem to have the same months. So July, Cancer, Leo, she's giving me Leo. In the second book, she has a lot of connection to all of these gods. Like Malik he like deals with the dead. He like takes the souls or whatever. And she prays to him throughout the book, or references him throughout the book. So it's kind of giving like a Pluto conjunct the sun placement. Like she's got this connection to, or maybe like, I don't know, Scorpio, Venus or something. Like she's got like a dark sort of undercurrent connection to this underworld. And she's going to have two powers, and her second power is perhaps talking to the dead, or something to do with souls or visiting souls. We don't really know yet. It's one of the scenes in the second book. She sees a character that passed away in the first book, and it feels really real to her. So anyway, it's giving me some sort of a Scorpio situation. But she, to me, definitely has a defined ego. I would even go so far as to say she's an ego manifestor and is making decisions based on what her heart wants. She's also like loves to make promises. She's very selfless. She's reckless with her body, which is giving me undefined sacral center, or even a gate 46G center. Gate 46 is like your physical self, like learning to love your physical body. And her relationship with her physical body has been rocky at best, because she has this syndrome, or sort of where her joints like slip and are loose. They have to make modifications, and she really does not want modifications to be made for her, and she wants to survive. So she ends up bonding this really grumpy dragon named Tarn, and he is so cute and sweet, and we love him, but he's very grumpy. Actually, he's not that cute. I mean, I think he's adorable, and in my head he's Liam Neeson's, but I digress. And Tarn, dragons like are notorious for just like, if they fall off they die, the rider, like you have to earn it. Dragons feel like they're the superior species, and Tarn makes all of these modifications for her, including allowing a saddle to be made for her, which is like so cute and sweet. And anyway, it's giving me gate 46, where she's like really learning, like, where are the boundaries of my physical power? How does it feel? When do I need to make modifications? When do I need a break? Like, she pushes herself to burnout in the book series at least twice, and perhaps more. And she's like, it's fine. If I die, it's fine. Like, I'll die for the people I love. And so this like self-sacrifice, it's really giving me a defined ego center, this ability to like put yourself second, or to know where, like, I don't know, the greater good is more important than you or the people you love. Like, I mean, it's not great, because there's also this thing where her bonds are so strong that they think if she dies, her dragon dies, and then her lover's dragon dies, because their dragons are bonded, and then he will die. So like, she's gonna kill herself to save them all, but might end up killing them all in the process. So we're like, okay, Violet, just chill. She doesn't really know where her boundaries are, and she's really pushing through those. And she also like doesn't really give a shit about her physical body, or she's like got this relationship with pain where it's not something that scares her. There's a scene in the second book where she gets tortured for like a week, which is, it's so gnarly. But she like never breaks. It doesn't, like, she's very mentally strong. So this is to me giving also a defined head center, where she's like, she knows what she's very quick too. So she knows what she's looking for. She knows what's important to think about. And the only time she really like loses it emotionally are A, when she's like having hot sex with her boyfriend. Oh, or B, when Catriona is like turning up the volume on her emotions, and she sort of like loses track of where am I in this kerfuffle. So that to me is giving undefined emotional center. Defined head, if you have a defined head in ajna, the head is the pressure center. So like she has got a relationship with mental pressure. She was trained to be a scribe all of her life, and she really like kind of thrives on the mental pressure. She's super quick, she's super with it, and she knows like how to look at things from a different angle than everybody else in the book. And she comes up with these solutions and suggestions way before anybody else sees them, and it's a really big asset to her. So to me, that's giving defined ajna. And in order to have a defined crown, this one at the top, you have to have a defined ajna because that's the only place that it connects. She's also, I think she's a manifestor. So in that case, she's got a defined throat. And I could argue about which channels specifically she has defined, but I'm just going to stick to the centers for the sake of this conversation. So this is actually, there's only 3 manifestor channels, just like fun fact. This is one of them. And then these other 2 that go to the emotional center. And then the rest of the channels off the throat are projected channels. So that's interesting too. And she does have like elements of a projector to me, but I really think that she's a manifestor. She's so determined. She's so strong-willed. She's so like, she does have this like connection to anger too, which is the not self theme of the manifestor. And when she lets herself get frustrated, or the second book is really for her about gaining control over her power over this lightning so that she doesn't just like fucking lose her shit and blow things up. So that to me, it's giving manifestor. I also would argue that she has a defined spleen. This I kind of go back and forth on. So the spleen is really knowing, it's like your basic instincts, it's survival instincts, but it's also like knowing what is healthy for you and what isn't. And she, in the same way, in the same breath that I will say that she does like push past her physical limits a lot, she possibly has like a defined sacral and or root center, and having a defined root and undefined sacral like kind of gears you up to pushing past those limits, or being, it's easier to push past your limits, I'll say. And since she's so used to pain, that's not something that she's like listening to as a sign that she's at the edge. She like doesn't care if she's at her edge. And she like literally, this bitch has almost killed herself like 3 times for the greater good. I digress. Okay. So back to the spleen and knowing like what is healthy for you and what isn't. She does push past her boundaries. So perhaps she does know where they are because she can like feel she's approaching burnout, and then just like, oh well, makes the conscious decision to move past those limits. But having this defined as like, what is healthy for me, what isn't healthy for me, a lot of people are telling her, not in the first book especially, like don't get with Xaden, who's like her star-crossed lover, who is the one that she is like head over heels in love with by probably the middle of the first book, and then definitely all throughout the second. This, she's like, you know what, like I gotta test the waters, I gotta try what's good for me. So that being said, I would also say that Violet is either a 1-3 or a 3-1. The 1, I'm getting the 1 because she specifically like, she's got that scribe brain. She really likes to research. She fucking loves her research. She's like always going to the library. She like can't get enough of it, wants all the books. And that is, knowledge is power, And she also is really connected to, or bases a lot of her merit on the things that she knows. Reciting facts relaxes her. When she's in stressful situations, she has this tendency to like recite facts that she's long ago learned about whatever, dragons or the map of the where they live. And that's very, the investigation piece is very one line. One lines need to feel safe and comfy with the amount of information they have. And in order to get the operant amount of information, they need to research. And she does that a lot. And then the 3 is really the adventurous part of it. I think she's like, I would say she's a 1-3, where she's really leading with that like need and insatiable quest for knowledge. I have to have this information in order to be safe. Even with Xaden, her boyfriend in the second book, like their main tension point is that he's keeping a lot of secrets and she wants to know what they are. And they annoyingly don't get to spend a lot of time together in the first half of the book because the powers that be are keeping them apart, which I was really irritated by. But she doesn't feel comfortable or safe with him until he's willing to tell her everything. And that is giving one line to me. Like, safety is really based on how much you know, your foundation of knowledge, and Violet needs it in order to let him all the way in. And then she's got a 3 in the body. This is what I think. So threes are really like, throw caution to the wind, let me try it. I can do it. Don't tell me what to do. They're experimenters. They really are looking like what bonds can be made or broken here. Like, how can we change things and what information have I learned by going through it? And she really has to like dive in and get to the bottom in order to really fully comprehend things. And the 3 in the body is so sexy too, like especially with Xaden. She's like, this shouldn't be hot. You know, she's always questioning herself, especially when he's like on the sparring mat or like got his knives or whatever. She's like, this is kind of toxic. Why am I so attracted to him? But she can't help it. That 3 in the body just wants the experience. It's ignited by his presence. I would even argue that she's a split definition and he might complete her and vice versa. Yeah. So she also does need to try things like once she's got the mental like comprehension down, she's like, okay, I think this is how it's going to work. I think it is going to work. I feel safe with the amount of information I have. And now we just have to try it. Like in the second book, like Raising the Wards, she's like, she had to try and fail a couple of times. And she doesn't really fail that often, especially mentally. So in the second book, we see her really grappling with that loss of solid ground because history isn't what they've been taught anymore. We're learning that lots of texts have been hidden and controlled by whomever 400 years ago. A lot of history got wiped out. So she's really struggling to remember who she is in this environment and also like not to be able to feel safe with the knowledge that she holds. It's really difficult for her. And then to like, because she doesn't have all the information, she can't, her trials and her trial and error process is a little more messy because she doesn't have those missing pieces of information. So like 1-3 is like a tricky profile. I think it's a tricky profile because they're both in the bottom half of it's called the trigram. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Like 1 is the foundational line of the bottom, and then 3 is the top, and then you move into like they're both personal learning experiences, and most profiles have a combination of 1 from the personal side and 1 from the collective side, like learning from others or sharing information or being around other people in order to just noticed a stain on my carpet in order to get the information that you need. So anyways, Violet. Oh, that's how you do that. Okay, so this is what I think Violet has. Yeah, actually, maybe she does book 844. Defined. Maybe she got 2. Yeah, she probably has this competition one, which is like really wanting to be first. And it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. So she has like so much sweet. She's got a lot of love to give, and she has a lot of like understanding and compassion and ability to relate to other people. And she even like, she'll put herself in a detriment to help somebody else. She's got a lot of altruistic energy. So I think perhaps that's gate. I'm going to say she's got gate 18, which is like authority, connection to, or fear of. You know what? Fuck it. Maybe she's got 3 channels from her spleen here. Okay. And then maybe she has a root defined. Maybe. Let's just say this is Violet. Oh, okay. She needs 1 up here. I'm going to go the middle channel, but I honestly could argue she also is like super logical. So let's say she's got this lawyer brain fact here. I'm going to say she's got a split definition between the head and the throat because she doesn't always want to explain herself and she doesn't always want to let everyone else know all of the information that she has. So this is my guess for Violet. She does probably have some hanging gates. Gate of mystery. It's like a real sexy one too. So that's what I'm gonna touch on Dane really quick. He played a lot bigger of a role in the first book than he did in the second book. And he was responsible for a huge betrayal that we later find out was kind of accidental. his power is so there's something called intrinsic in this world, and that's where you can like read other people's minds. So I would say like open crown ajna here, like being able to anticipate and hear other people's thoughts. And they usually kill people for this one, but his is controllable because they don't want you to be able to like get classified information. So they just like as soon as it manifests, they just fucking off a cadet, which is like, again, this world is pretty brutal. But Dane's is controllable, and he can see your memories, or at least your recent memories, as long as he's got hands on you. And in the first book, it's not clear. Like they say at first it has to be on your head, but we know from the book that your powers can continue to get stronger, like as you continue to be able to practice with them. And then Dane has the unfortunate reality of like his dad is a bad guy that we don't really find out until the second book. We kind of think Violet's mom is the bad guy in the first book, and she works with Dane's dad, and they're childhood friends. It's giving PETA. No, it's giving Gale. He's just a childhood friend. They were best friends when they were kids. She's like, in the first book, you find out like she's kind of always had a crush on him, and then when he finally goes to like give her a kiss, she's like, "Ooh, actually, yuck, never mind." And we find out too that he's been like, at first it's accidental, where it's like a friendly, "Oh my god, I missed you so much" touch, and then it turns into like he accidentally got information, and she is hanging out a lot with Xaden, who everyone thinks is big bad scary guy because his father was a leader for the rebellion. It turns out Xaden is like carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, and I will get into fucking Xaddy after this. But my original predictions in book one, which I hold strong to, is that Dane is a projector. And so what I think is interesting to explore like through this world, that your power, your secret power, manifests after you bond to a dragon, and it becomes from the power of that dragon, like that you channel. And the power is unique to you, and it's based on a need. And so Dane is really like buttoned up, like good boy. It's giving undefined ego center. Okay, I'll go back to the fucking chart. Okay, so Dane sees, to me, is giving undefined crown, undefined ajna, and this is like his need for information is coming from these, well, his like ability to the amplification. Okay, sorry, one thing at a time. So I wonder if your signet, they call it the power that you have, if that, can I just reset, there we go, if that comes from like their human design charts and the talents and gifts that they already had, plus the need that they have in the moment that the signet, or the theme that they're going through when the signet evolves. And so Dane is projector. He's giving no boundaries. He does not ask for consent, and a projector that doesn't ask for consent, which to me is like another way of interpreting being invited, and in the invitation and recognition piece, he's like taking the recognition. He's like, I know what's best for you. I'm going to keep you safe. Let me just let me in, you know? So that is Dane, like he wants to be recognized. He wants to prove that he is valuable, and he like has things to say, and he's like smart, and he's a good cadet. He's a very rule followy cadet. So to me, that's undefined spleen, maybe gate 18, but like it's the low vibration of gate 18 where like fear of authority. Usually people with gate 18 have this flavor of being a little rebellious, and Dane is nothing but he's not rebellious, or at least in the first book he's not. He does figure out that the authority that he's put all of his trust in, so this is why it's giving me undefined, because like he's learning the authority that he's put all of his trust in has lied to him, and everything that he thought he knew, and all of the ways that he thought he was keeping the people he loved safe. Because remember, this college, everybody's dying all the time, and he loves Violet. Like, she's his oldest friend. He just wants to keep her safe. He's seen her grow up. He's seen her like have these physical weaknesses, I guess, for lack of a better word. And he knows that in the writer's quadrant, like only the strong survive. And so he's trying to do his best to keep her safe, but he doesn't have all the information. He wants it, but he doesn't have it. So this to me is undefined spleen, undefined ego center. And the ego center, the not self theme of that is like, do I feel like I have to prove myself or improve myself in order to get what I want? And he's constantly striving, probably an undefined G center too, like looking for love, identity, and direction. He's looking outside of himself, like looking to his superiors, which I guess is good in a war college. It's a good little soldier. He's looking there for guidance and for, if I just do the right things, everything will be okay. And the people I love will be safe. In doing that, in doing what he thinks is best for everybody, which actually turns out not to be the best thing for everybody, he ends up getting people that Violet loves killed. And it's like an unforgivable thing that happens. Although in the second book, they do begin to reconnect and rekindle and remember why they do like each other in the first place. So I don't know. Is Dane emotional? Perhaps. He's kind of soft. Like he to me is Cancer Man vibes. So perhaps he's like a root, a root emo center. He's not super charismatic. We find out in the when he's like the leader of the squadron in the second book. Violet talks about like he's doing his best, but he's no Xaden, So that to me is not, he does not have a defined throat. He's just finding his voice. He's figuring it out. I think Dane is like just so lost. And I'm glad that he got some redemption in the second book. And I hope that she's not setting us up for a love triangle with them again, because I'm not interested. I'm just not interested in anybody but Xaden for Violet. Okay. And then I'm just going to touch on Riddic really quick because while we're here, Riddic to me is manifesting generator. Riddic is comic relief. Riddic is Gemini. Riddic's a Gemini. You know what? Maybe Dane's a Capricorn or like a Libra or something, like an emotional projector man who does not know how to, he doesn't know how to give people their own agency and trust that they're going to do the right thing and trust that he will be recognized and invited in and like seen for his skills and talents, which starts to happen in the second book. He really sort of like takes a step back, realizes he's fucked up, like, and lets people make their own choices, which I appreciate. Okay, Riddic, comedy relief. To me, it has this channel, the 12. So I think he's got to define sacral. Like he also might be this. So this one's like all about enthusiasm and sharing. It's like in the moment too, like, oh, let's just fucking say he is 57 too, where he's getting like little hits of the future. It's like things just like sort of bubble out of his mouth and he can't really help himself. And then this 1222 is kind of similar. It's like grace and charm, and he can be annoying, or I'm imagining that there's people in the world that think he's annoying, but I just think he's so funny, and he does add an element of comic relief, and he is like super friendly. He's always joking around. He's always got something to say. So 1222, it's a manifestor channel. I don't think he's full manifestor. He might be. I don't know enough about Riddic to make that like what's going on in his head and all that to make that solid claim. But 1222 is really like, it's grace and charm, but it's having like a unique, like funny way of explaining things. Let's also give him 23, which is like kind of doubles down on that same theme. And he just always has something to say. He always has a joke to crack. It's just coming out of him. And that would like be an argument for this little fun contingency too. Like 35 is charisma. It's getting so much joy of doing something that you love, and then it just like that. Like 20 is like the truth teller, and it just he can't help himself. He can't help himself, and sometimes I have to elbow him like, shut the fuck up, Riddic. So this is Riddic. He's probably got other stuff too, but I just like he's such a. We just love Riddic. Also because I'm a Gemini. Okay, let's get into Xaden. Xaden's born in March. So he's Pisces or Aries. He's a Pisces. Xaden's all water, I think he's also got like a bunch of Scorpio in there, obviously, because his talent is one of his talents, we actually find out, is shadow wielding, which is like, what is more Scorpio than that? Which is why I also think like wherever his Scorpio is complements where Violet's is, conjunct her sun. Like they both have this sort of like deep undercurrent. Xaden has lost both of his parents. His mom left when he was young. We actually like probably are going to get hopefully more information about her. Like she seems to be a big tie into the story, although who knows. And then his dad was a leader of the rebellion, and Xaden took on the weight of being responsible for all of the rebellion children to save them from dying. And then we find out he also took on the weight of keeping Violet safe. And at first, like, he hated her because Violet's mom killed all of the parents of the rebellion. But he falls in love with her, obviously. And so Xaden to me is undefined G center. He like doesn't know how to love himself. Gate 10. He does not know. He does not know. He does not understand what love is. Like nobody has told him that they love him. And he's just been like being crushed under the weight of responsibility for basically his entire life. He's definitely got a defined emotion or he's got a defined emotional center to me. But let's give him this. That's sexy. So this one is intimacy, learning how to be completely intimate with another person, learning how to like move through conflict and friction. And we see him grow so much from the first book to the second, where he's still really hesitant to give her all of the secrets because he's not sure that he's lovable if she knows everything. He's not sure, people have left and died and abandoned him his whole life. And he sort of had to grow up really quickly and be in charge of himself. And so he's not even sure, like, how do I love myself? He, in the same way that she like tries to kill herself a bunch of times for him, he ends up making the ultimate sacrifice at the end of book 2 and bargaining a piece of his soul, which we don't fully understand yet, for her, for everybody, to save everyone, but mostly for her. Like he says a bunch of times, like, I'd burn the world down for you, like everyone else could be gone. And as long as it's me and you at the end, that's it. So it's giving like this really intense, intimate connection and really understand. It's so sexy too. It's like understanding how to create that deep, intimate bond with somebody else. And they obviously have some chemistry. You know what I'm saying? So I would say that their composite chart, like they are completing a lot of channels for each other. Like perhaps he's got, this in there and she's got that one in there. So hot. Okay. I think Xaden has a very defined spleen. Like I think Gate 18 again. I mean, the themes of authority come up a lot in a war college. So perhaps I'm just reading like a lot into that, but I'm going to give him Gate 18 and I'm probably going to give that Gate 18 a high placement for him because he really is like, he knows how to play the game. He is responsible for keeping like everybody safe and he's working double time. He's got these 2 lives basically. He's got a lot of secrets, so hence the shadows. I'm thinking he's very charismatic. Yeah, let's give him a defined throat. But he really like thinks things through and he understands the value of silence. He understands like when it's better not to say things. And he's like, honestly, he's such a vault. He's carrying so much. Patterns. Definitely got, let's give him this too. So 50 is like this relationship to responsibility. I mean, he's made so many promises. Let's give him a defined. Yeah, actually, this kind of makes sense for him. Like, this is bargains, or it's the salesperson too. You know what? Giving him this also. This is fun. Okay, one at a time. So Gate 50 is really like knowing like when to take responsibility and what you're responsible for and how that shows up. And it can, in the low iteration of it, it's like, I don't want to be responsible for anything. He doesn't really have that option. He doesn't really have that option. He's also patient. I'm going to give him a defined root and like probably a format channel. Ooh, okay. We're giving him a lot here. So 3 is like learning from the pain at the beginning. And he's had so much pain at the beginning of his life. And like now he's really learning like how to love himself, perhaps how to love another. And I'm giving him a defined ego because defined egos like to make promises. And he puts the weight of the revolution on his back. Basically, he's like living this double life. He like Dane, we find out, is an intrinsic, so I'm leaving his head open. I did say I wanted him to have a defined throat, but I don't. You know what? Maybe he is a manifesting generator. This is, I don't know if anyone else is entertained by this at all. Okay. I don't know. I don't know if I love that for him, but he might have an undefined throat and just be like really, he learned really early on like when to bite his tongue, and like learned that verbally processing things like wasn't a safe way for him to be. And so a lot of his stuff is in the body, and he's learning how to verbalize that. But like, you know, these physical connections for him are like very, he speaks with his body. So this one is the gate of friendship. It's really like making deals and bargains, and also it's the gate of aloneness and the gate of friendship. So being on the outside and looking in, he's like really, he's holding together this whole rebellion family. He's looking out for everybody whose parent died in the rebellion, and he's also able to sort of like make cutthroat decisions and say like, if you're not willing to help yourself, I can't help you. I can't save everybody. And if you fucking love Zayden, and if you want help, here's how it's gonna be. But he's seen so much. He's seen so much. And then this wave is like really powerful and potent, but it's like, I'm gonna give him like maybe even 2 format channels. The format channels between the root and the sacral are all about like being ready, having your ducks in a row, and biding your time, I guess, or like waiting to be fully organized. And he is nothing if not a man with a plan. And so this, with Violet having this defined and him having it undefined, like she's teaching him how to love. He's teaching her how to be intimate and how to like let somebody in and where her boundaries are. And like he kind of almost in the first book, you see him like giving her a much longer leash or a much like bigger playing field than Dane was able to, because Dane also has this undefined. Dane doesn't even fucking know where his boundaries are. So how is he going to tell you where yours are, where your physical limitations are? Xaden is well aware. He is a generator. He gets off on doing the things that he loves and doing the things that he loves for the people that he loves. And then like these promises motivate him. Okay, what else? I think Xaden's a 5-1 or maybe a 5-2. The 2 is like the hermit line. So the 2 in the body kind of makes sense for Xaden. Like he does need a lot of alone time. He's giving someone with a caves environment where like, don't at me. I need to go away. I need to process. I need to wait out my emotional wave. We see him a lot of times in the book, like he goes off by himself and he goes and like looks out at a view and just has some alone time. He's got a lot going on inside of him, and he just needs to be sort of alone and have his moment and pass through that emotional wave before he's able to like reset and rejoin everybody. 5 lines are also like, people push a lot of judgments onto a 5 line. It's a projection field, and everybody is looking at each other with projections all of the time. But for 5s especially, they're the recipients of, you're like this or you're like that, or you can help me with this or you can save me from that. And there is an aspect to having a 5 in your profile where you like do like to save the day. You do want to be seen and recognized as that person, and not every day is yours to save, and not everything is going to give you that satisfaction, going to give you that sort of sacral response in the direction of saving this day or whatever. It also means that people have so many opinions about you that aren't even true. And Xaden manages this by just sort of like letting people say whatever they want to say. Cause he's like, it doesn't matter. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing. I know that I'm like, there is a self sort of deprecating aspect to him where he doesn't believe that he's worthy of love, but I'm blaming that on his undefined G center and his childhood. But he does have certain sort of rules that he wants to live by, and he does have like a certain like codex, and he knows what he's willing to bargain with and what he isn't, and he knows that like what battles are worth fighting and what aren't. In the whole first book, they're lying about like it's the griffin attacks versus the wyvern attacks, and he's just like, just pretend. Like he tells this new students, like, this isn't worth our time. Just survive and pretend and train, and like your efforts are better used over here. And then the two, I'm gonna change my mind from a 5-1 to a 5-2, because he's not like, or maybe even a 5-3. Like he also might have a 3 in the body, and that like spicy, sexy connection between him and Violet is so hot. So I'm giving him either a 5-2 or a 5-3. And he has a talent for receiving knowledge, but he's not doing it in the same way that she is, where she's like going to books. He's like reading people. He's like, he just gets in there. He's also an intrinsic, so he's able to like read intentions. What would that be? That would actually be like undefined ego, like being able to feel somebody's motivation, but that like topples the entire theory of him having a defined ego. But maybe it's just enhancing because it's his second gift. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, maybe 5-3. And then the 3 in the body is like learning from experiences and needing to experience things. Although he's got like quite a clamp on his self-control. He kind of gets off on putting things off or being in control, or perhaps because he does not want to feel bad about using the information that he's gleaning, like as an intrinsic, especially when it comes to Violet, for assuming that she wants to do something physical that she hasn't verbally expressed to him. Like he doesn't want to use that power to assume anything, even though she's like mentally begging for it. So that is, yeah. I have some questions about all of these channels, but I think he does have like enough defined where, you know what, I'm gonna give him a defined ajna. Am I? Yeah, maybe like that. He does have enough defined where he does feel like the things he's grappling with are probably like very intense. He's a very intense character. And my theory on a chart is when you have like the fewer open centers, you have the more intense the experience is in those centers. So for him, he's really, to me, like really learning, how do I love? How do I love myself? How do I accept love? How do I receive love? Like at the end of the last book, the last chapter, he's like, I wish I told her I loved her. I love her so much. Oh my God, she's going to die without me telling her. And then it takes him 50% of the book in the second book to say those words to her. And he's like demanding that she say them first. Like he doesn't feel safe unless she's given up her skin in the game first. But it's like, homeboy, how are you going to say what you said at the end of the last chapter and then wait that long? So silly. Also, they're 20, they're 20 years old. They have a lot more self-awareness and are expressing a lot more evolution and have a lot more like understanding of, this is why Xaden's giving me 650, because like, or no, 659, sorry. Because he's like, in the second book, he's like, listen, we're going to talk about it. We're not going to ignore this. In order to have a normal, safe relationship, we're going to have to discuss these things. And so he's like the one kind of pushing her. Although he's annoying about like, ask the right questions. He's scared. He's a scared 23-year-old. Like in some ways, he's a man, but in a lot of ways, 23. And he's had other relationships, but like, has he? Anyway, this concludes people I want to talk about. What a ride this book was. I honestly, like, I have some questions, obviously, like everybody does. Like, what is Violet's second signet going to be? Why does Xaden feel positive that creepy general was after him? Why were there threads of power connecting them? Like, when did that happen? And why does Violet have dreams about him too, and potentially dreams that are even further in the future? Like, did they just want to get to Xaden so that they could get her to lower the wards later? Like, how long is this plan planned out? Is Nowlin part of it? Taryn's previous writer, which would maybe explain the energetic bonds. Because, and when did Taryn and Scale bond? Like, how long have they been bonded? Did Xaden and Brennan go to school together? No, because Xaden's, maybe they crossed over for a year. Listen, I've got a lot of questions, as I'm sure you do if you've also read the book. Yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any other guesses, or if you think that maybe I'm wrong about some of this, like I'm totally open to opinions and different possibilities. And I'll just be biding my time until book 3 comes out. And listening to other people analyze book 2. It's just so fun to be like part of a cultural sort of wave like this, or I think it's so fun, and perhaps that's my 4-line speaking. Justice for Xaden. Honestly, depressing. That last line of the on, I can't. Like right after her mother too. Like it was. I was sobbing in the way that I sobbed when Dumbledore died. You know, I remember being in my basement, like, oh. Anyway, okay, I'm sending love.